Yes. So now we have the honor of introducing the next speaker, who I talked about a little bit in my story, Dr. David Phillips. And, you know, I was really nervous to start taking Juice Plus, even though on the back it says nutrition rather than supplement facts. And Dr. David Phillips talked to my mom and made me feel so secure that I could put this in my body. And for that, I am so incredibly grateful. I'm so blessed to be able to call him a good friend now, and I'm really excited to bring him to the stage. So here's Dr. David Phillips.
No? Now you can. Wow. That is the coolest thing. I've never been introduced by Olympians before. That's pretty cool, isn't that? Well, I have to say that it is so great to be here and see this room packed to capacity. And then for all of you around the world who are listening, thank you. This information tonight that you're going to get, I think as a doctor, I find to be very transformative information. And what I have done is I've titled this talk, Live Life to the Plus. You know, what does that mean? What does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? But more importantly, what are some of the, the lifestyle components that are necessary to achieve a good, long, healthy life? And I think that you're going to find out by the end of this lecture that, living life to the plus isn't necessarily, a slogan or a catchphrase, but really is more synonymous with health and vitality that is obtainable for every single one of us, no matter what kind of health challenges you might face in your lifetime. And I always have to remind people that despite that horrible, relentless chronological clock on the wall that keeps ticking, that obviously we don't have any control over. We can have a significant influence on our internal clock, or our biological clock, simply by engaging in a healthy lifestyle. And as an athlete, I like to think of health and longevity as a bicycle with two wheels, with one wheel being exercise and the other wheel being good nutrition. And if one of those wheels is either flat or missing, then that bicycle's not going to go very far, is it? What we know through the research today is that you need a combination of both of those to achieve a good, long, healthy life. And a great example of this is in the Okinawan population. They're long considered to be some of the healthiest individuals in the world, living an average lifespan of at least 81 years, and this is, I believe, some 50 years into this study. And what the researchers have found out is that about only 1/3 of their longevity can be attributed to their genetics or their genes. However, it is their lifestyle, okay? It's their lifestyle that accounts for about 2/3 of their life expectancy. With a key to healthy aging is maintaining healthy lifelong weight through diet and exercise. But what I think is really significant about this particular study is that it absolutely proves that our lifestyle can trump our genetic inheritance. We do not have to be victims of the genes that we inherited from our parents and their parents and their parents. Simply by engaging in a healthy lifestyle, you can turn good genes on and bad genes off. And this is absolutely true. Your DNA is no longer your destiny in life, because we know through the study of something called epigenetics that exercising and eating properly will turn good genes on and bad genes off. And that's not only good just for you, but they've actually shown that you can pass those genetic traits up to 2 to 3 generations beyond you. Okay, so think about this. Simply by engaging in a healthy lifestyle today, you can potentially impact your family's past generations of chronic disease conditions, perhaps eradicating them for your future family's generations to come. And it's a fascinating field of epigenetics where, go ahead, ladies, I know you want to do that. I know, go ahead. I feel the anxiety, just go ahead. But there's some interesting twin studies that prove this point that I'm talking about, and this was published just a few years ago, where Finnish researchers found that identical twins in which one member was obese, they both shared the same gene that slows metabolism down. It's called the FTO gene, or they call that the fat gene. But those particular genes were significantly less active in the non-obese member who was more physically active. So physical activity alone has the potential of tripping these genes on or not. And again, it's a fascinating field of epigenetics where we're finding out how our environment, what we eat and how we move, can actually dictate how our genetic code is expressed. We're not as hardwired as we once thought we were. So the question then you have to ask yourself this evening is, do you have a choice over how you age? And more importantly, how can we slow this entire process down? So this is the general outline we're going to follow here in the next 50 minutes or so. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens to our bodies when we age and some of the physiological issues that we might be dealing with as we get older. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to prove to you through the research that we know today that diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables combined with an exercise program is very powerful and potent medicine. In helping to reduce and maybe even eliminate a lot of the chronic maladies that we normally associate with the aging process. And then we're going to talk about something called oxidative stress and the power of phytonutrients. And this is an important concept to understand because it's the important role of the micronutrition, the naturally occurring vitamins, minerals, and plant chemicals, and how important those micronutrients are in helping to reduce what is now considered to be a leading cause of chronic disease, aging, and impaired exercise performance. And that's something called oxidative stress and free radical damage. And then we're going to talk about supplementation and attempting to bridge the nutritional gap that almost all of us have at one point or another. Whether it's a daily issue, monthly, weekly, monthly, yearly, bridging that nutritional gap, but specifically looking at new and emerging and compelling research that now absolutely challenges what we thought was the proper and traditional way of bridging the nutritional gap, and that has been through the consumption of isolated, fragmented, laboratory-made vitamins and or multivitamins that we see everywhere in counters today. Clearly, there is a healthier form in the form of supplementation, and that comes in the form of whole food supplementation, which will then bring us to the final chapter, and that's talking about the research behind whole food supplementation and why that is a far superior way of providing the nutrients that your body needs to perform optimally. Again, day in, day out, year after year after year. So let's go ahead and start off with the first chapter. And again, what I'm going to do is just pick out certain parts of our physiology that we encounter issues with as we get older. And then I'm going to prove to you again through the research that we know today that diets rich in fruits and vegetables combined with exercise, very powerful, powerful medicine. And of course, one of the things that we encounter as we get older, unfortunately, is cardiovascular disease because as we get older, our hearts become less efficient pumps. And you combine that with our vascular system, our artery system, that becomes more rigid and less elastic, and that combined with other factors can lead to problems, ranging from heart attacks to high blood pressure to strokes. But specifically, when we look at high blood pressure, these are pretty big numbers because what they have found is that exercise can potentially lower your systolic blood pressure, which is that top number, by 10 points, and your diastolic blood pressure, which is that bottom number, by 10 points as well. And for some folks, that may not seem like much of a reduction, but you know what? In the medical literature, that's a significant reduction. And again, all you're doing is incorporating an exercise program into your routine. Okay, fruit and veg intake and cardiovascular health. This is the ABBOT Heart Study, which was started way back in 1992. And it's such a large study that they have now enrolled well over 300,000 men and women. And what they have found out was just recently published in the last few years is that those in this study who average 8 or more servings of fruits and vegetables in their diet every day, and we're going to talk here in a little bit about how you can get more of the health benefits of fruits and vegetables into your diet, just a little bit. But those who average 8 or more had a 22% less likely chance of having a heart attack, which again, that may not seem like much of a percent reduction, but again, if you look at the medical literature, that is a significant reduction. And again, all you're doing is incorporating, again, the health benefits of fruits and veggies into your diet. Okay, what about cancer? Well, every day, our cells replicate by the tens, thousands, hundreds, millions of times, and it's actually a pretty efficient process. But every once in a while, the DNA or the genetic material inside one of those cells can become damaged or mutated. And our immune systems are actually pretty good at finding those mutated cells and taking them out, or they end up being shut down in a process called apoptosis. But if those mutated cells somehow escape the immune system, and then they go on to replicate over and over and over again, you end up with this haywired, out of control growth that can be the beginning of various tumors or cancer. But the good news is that through lifestyle intervention, it can have a major impact on cancer. Because what they have found is that exercise can potentially lower by 30 to 50% your risk of cancers of the breast, colon, and prostate. And the original citation on this study was back in 2002, 2003, but these percentages were backed up just within the last year and a half in a very well-designed, large, randomized controlled trial that, again, backed up those percentages. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Okay, because exercise alone can potentially cut your risk of those cancers virtually in half, and that is regardless of your familial or your genetic predisposition for those cancers. We're talking about turning cancer genes on or not. Unfortunately, every single one of us, we're all born with cancer genes. They're called oncogenes. The question is, are they going to get turned on or not? And we now know the power that exercise has over certain types of cancer. Okay, fruit and veggie intake and cancer. This is the World Cancer Research Fund, which is a huge study where they collated research on diet and cancer from the United States, the UK, and continental Europe. And when they collated this huge body of research, this was the statement that they came out with, is that an integrated approach to the evidence shows that most diets that are protective against cancer are mainly made up of foods of plant origin, okay? Diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables. Okay, one more thing before I move on, because this is still kind of a big buzzword in medicine today, and that's something called chronic systemic inflammation. Now, what is considered to be a normal immune inflammatory reaction that would occur inside your body would be as if you were to get a cut. And that wound, as it heals over, becomes inflamed, right? It gets red, it gets hot, it gets nasty for a little while, and then it heals over. And that's considered to be a normal immune inflammatory reaction. But when that inflammation goes haywire and becomes this low-level, total body, kind of smoldering systemic inflammation, well, they have now linked that to chronic disease conditions across the board. And in fact, this chronic systemic inflammation is intimately tied to cardiovascular disease. It's intimately tied to various cancers, neurodegenerative diseases, autoimmune disorders. So obviously reining in and neutralizing this byproduct of our daily metabolism that you really don't feel is important to do so. Again, and we can do so because, again, what the research shows is that if you exercise on a regular basis and you eat more fruits and vegetables, it will significantly lower your systemic inflammatory load. Okay, these are lifestyle components, each of them powerful. But when you put the two together, well, I consider that very, very powerful natural anti-aging medicine. So I think that you can see, before I move on, that virtually every single chronic disease condition that you hear about, that you read about, that you see on TV, is going to be positively influenced by exercising and eating more fruits and vegetables. We've seen this trend now over the last 50, 60 years, but now the research is irrefutable. So the question then is, how much exercise should we be getting? And I'm not going to belabor the points too hard on these. These are just standards set by the American College of Sports Medicine. But what I want to emphasize is this. They recommend that you mix your exercise program up. You do some aerobic activity, walking, running, swimming, playing tennis. Combined with strength training, weightlifting, resistance training is vastly important, especially the older that you get. Because stronger muscles actually make stronger bones. And muscles actually have a very high caloric demand, so they continue to burn calories even after you've stopped exercising. And then finally, flexibility and balance training, things like yoga and Pilates. So it is the combination of all of these that they recommend that you mix into your exercise program, again, to maximize your exercise program. Okay, so that's how much exercise is recommended. Now the question is, how many fruits and vegetables should we be eating? And I've alluded to that a little bit over the last 10 minutes or so, but that now brings us to the next chapter, and that's talking about something called oxidative stress and the power of phytonutrients. And again, I'm going to reiterate this point because I find that as I travel around lecturing about this, people get this concept confused. Because again, it's the important role of the micronutrition, okay, the naturally occurring vitamins, minerals, and thousands of plant chemicals that you typically do not get in great quantities in the food groups. You don't get a great quantity of micronutrients from steak or pasta, or bread. It's part of what makes fruits and vegetables so uniquely healthy to our physiology, and it is those micronutrients that have been found to be responsible for, again, reducing what is now considered to be a leading cause of chronic disease, aging, and impaired exercise performance. And that's something called oxidative stress and free radical damage. So that begs the question, what in the world is oxidative stress? And I like to compare oxidative stress to a car engine. A car engine utilizes gasoline to combust to make a usable form of energy to make that car run. But out of that external combustion comes a toxic byproduct in the form of exhaust. Well, our body's engines are called mitochondria. And it's these ovoid organelles that exist inside the cells of our bodies. These are the powerhouses of our body. Okay, this is where energy from the food that you eat, combined with the oxygen that you breathe in, goes into making a usable form of energy to make your body run. And that's something called ATP, going back to biology. But the important thing to understand is that this is not an airtight process. And not all those molecules are utilized in the production of ATP. So you end up with this spillover effect of these highly charged reactive oxygen species, otherwise known as free radicals. And these free radicals, if they're not effectively neutralized, can very quickly escape from the mitochondria, and then they begin to do damage to our nearby healthy cells. Free radicals can attack the membranes that surround all of our cells and tissues. They can attack the proteins inside of our bodies. Free radicals can attack our DNA, our genetic material. And real importantly, whether you're just getting up and going to work, all the way up to the elite athlete, cumulatively over a period of time, if free radicals are not effectively neutralized, they will begin to attack the very mitochondria that form them. And the reason that's important is because mitochondria do not have the ability to effectively repair themselves from that kind of damage, similar to other cells inside of our bodies. And so cumulative damage to your mitochondria begin to shut down your mitochondria. And the reason that's important, those are your energy producers, right? And loss of energy production is going to affect you. Again, whether you're just getting up, going to work, whether you're going out to garden, all the way up to the elite athlete. And this is a cumulative process. The research shows that this kind of damage can take years and years and years to manifest itself in actual disease processes. I mean, think about this just for a minute. Okay? Think about this. All of us. How many people do you know that are too tired to perform even the most basic tasks of daily life? I think we all know people like that, and perhaps some of you struggle with this tonight. But this doesn't have to be us at all, any of us, by any stretch of the imagination. And this is actually a really short list. They now believe that oxidative stress has been implicated in over 150 acute and chronic disease conditions that can occur inside the human body. So obviously reining in and neutralizing this byproduct of our daily metabolism is important to do so. And we can do so because we all come equipped with. We are all born with this complex internal enzymatic and non-enzymatic cascade that acts as a frontline defense system in attempting to neutralize these free radicals. Favorite part of my lecture is me looking at you looking at that. I need a selfie for that one. Believe me, it is pretty hysterical, trust me. But I'm not going to go through all this. But the important thing is, the reason I put this up is that even though we all come equipped with a system that attempts to neutralize these free radicals, the important thing to understand is that the research shows that this system cannot function by itself. It will fail on its own unless it's fortified. And we fortify this system through our diets. But it is specifically diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables, and specifically the rainbow of colors. The reds, the greens, the purples, the yellows, because inside of those colorful pigments exist the very powerful plant chemicals called phytonutrients. And what I mean by phytonutrients is basically plant-based nutrition. It's thousands and thousands of powerful antioxidant substances found in all the fruits and vegetables. And this is the key as we move forward with the rest of this lecture. It's all those plant nutrients working together synergistically the way Mother Nature intended them to be powerful in the human body. Okay, so the question is, how many fruits and vegetables should we be eating? And based on the most current epidemiological and observation studies, it's now recommended that we should be consuming 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And I scroll that up every day. That's not Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay, that's 7 days a week, every day for the rest of your life. And because there's athletes in the audience that kind of blew me away doing some research on this a few years ago, that based on kilocalorie output, individuals who approximate 60 to 90 minutes or more of physical activity, in order to neutralize that oxidative stress that occurs when you exercise, they recommend that you eat 16 to 18 servings every day. So good luck with that one. Okay? So unless you can get that quantity, just the 7 to 13 servings every day, and just as important as the quantity is the rainbow of colors, the vast array of colors. Unless you can get that into your diet each and every day for almost every single one of us at one point or another, there's frankly going to exist some form of a gap in our nutrition. And that then brings us to the next chapter, and that's talking about supplementation and attempting to bridge that nutritional gap. And as I mentioned at the top of the lecture, the traditional way we've been bridging this nutritional gap has been through the consumption of isolated, fragmented, laboratory-made vitamins like vitamin C or vitamin E and or multivitamins. Again, that we see everywhere on counters today. And this is very interesting. This is the cover of Time magazine way back in 1992. And back then it said, the real power of vitamins. New research shows they may help fight cancer, heart disease, and the ravages of aging. Okay? And folks, here we are, over 20 years after that cover came out, and that's never been proven. Okay? And well-designed, reproducible studies, they've never found an isolated vitamin or multivitamin that's ever been shown to do any of that. Okay, now this used to be me. And I've had this quote in my lecture for years, and I love it. You know, it is what we already know. It is what we already know that oftentimes prevents us from learning new things. And I know we've got lots of healthcare providers in the audience tonight, and I'm not sure about you, but out of my 4 years of medical school education, I got 2 weeks of nutrition. 2 weeks, and it was completely optional. That's right, so I didn't go. Thank you very much. No, I'm sorry to say I have no recollection of it. It probably had something to do with the food pyramid at the time. Well, I was busy studying for my biochemistry test, my pathophysiology, my gross anatomy. Why? Well, because nutritionists for nutritionists, right? You know, I'm a medical student learning to become a doctor. I'm learning about acute and chronic disease conditions and how to write prescriptions for those. And that is not to take anything away from medical students or doctors, because there's a huge amount of information that you have to learn to treat disease. But nutrition education, for the most part, is a mere blip on the radar. And what I was taught many, many years ago, and sadly, they continue to teach in so many medical schools across the country, including mine, is that it's okay to tell your patients to take isolated vitamins like vitamin C or E and or multivitamin as, you know, the insurance policy for an inadequate diet. But I'm here to tell you that there is a huge and significant paradigm shift in that entire line of thinking, and it is solely based on the research, okay, on the research that we know today that we didn't know as of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And this is just a handful of studies that were started some 10, 15, 20 years ago, looking at whether taking isolated vitamins like vitamin C or E and or multivitamins would have an impact in reducing these chronic disease conditions. And the data from these large studies has just now started to roll in, again, over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And you know what? It's telling us quite a different story. In some instances, these isolated synthetic nutrients are having no effect on human physiology. And in some instances, they're actually doing more harm than good. And I know that this sounds so counterintuitive. You know, just even when you look at the word vitamin, you think it's going to be healthy for you. You know what? But for the most part, in this country particularly, you know, we don't have isolated vitamin deficiencies so much anymore. What we really have is a deficiency in getting more whole raw food into our diet, the naturally occurring vitamins and minerals that our body knows what to do with. And neither the American Heart Association nor the American Institute for Cancer Research, neither of those institutions recommend vitamin supplementation to reduce cardiovascular disease or cancer. Okay, but what they do recommend in their statements is simply trying to get more fruits and vegetables into your diet. And I started talking about this way back in 2007 when some of the early pilot studies came out, but this was just published in the last year, year and a half. This is a very well-designed, randomized controlled trial where they found out that athletes that were taking these isolated vitamins, like vitamin C or E, well, they're finding out that those isolated vitamins are mechanistically shutting down cellular adaptations to exercise, leading to a decrease in training efficiency. Again, sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? Can't be possible. And you're going to hear my story here at the end as it totally relates to that particular study. So the bottom line is, you know what? Nature knows best. You know, what we have in nature is far superior to any man-made vitamin supplement produced in laboratories today. And coming back, a good example of this is taking a look at an apple. You know, an apple alone has well over some 10,000 phytonutrients, some 850 of which have already been named and identified. So I want you to follow me with the logic on this. This is important to understand. That now with over 12,500 phytonutrients that have already been named and identified in all the fruits and vegetables around us, which of all those nutrients are selected by scientists, are removed from the plant source, are taken to a laboratory, are chemically synthesized, and end up in a standard isolated vitamin or multivitamin? So scientists versus Mother Nature is making the determination of which of all those tens of thousands of plant chemicals is the most bioactive inside the human body. But by doing so, they've extracted that single nutrient from its natural synergistic role that it plays with the tens of thousands of other plant chemicals. Think about it. Would you rather have this make the determination of what's healthy to your body, or this down here? Man selected isolates from that fruit or veggie. And so the bottom line, based on the research, it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense to be bridging the nutritional gap that almost all of us have with whole food sources that contain your vitamins and minerals, but in their natural, whole, unfractionated form. But just beyond the 30-some-odd vitamins and minerals that we know about, it's the tens of thousands of other plant chemicals that they're finding in fruits and veggies. All those nutrients working together synergistically to be powerful in the human body versus trying to bridge the nutritional gap with what I just talked about, what I call no food sources, which again are the isolated, fragmented, laboratory-made vitamins that simply lack powerful synergy in the human body, that short of a deficiency disease, our bodies were simply not designed and knows what to do with. So, just as a gym or a fitness facility provides equipment for us to get physically fit, there's a product on the market today that literally thousands of healthcare providers around the world recommend to get nutritionally fit or fit at a cellular level. And the product that I recommend is Juice Plus, and the reason I strongly recommend it is because of the research done on it. It's the most thoroughly researched brand name nutritional product available today in the world, bar none. And that thing brings us to the final chapter. And that's talking about the research behind whole food supplementation. And again, the power behind this product that no other product can hold a candle to is the huge body of research done on it. Juice Plus is backed by years and years and years of independent third-party research, which means that the company provides the product to the research institution, and then they step back and they wait for the result of that study, either good or bad. So the product is removed from the auspices or the potential bias of a company doing research on its own product. To remove that inherent bias, it's done in a third-party institution. And then when the study is done, it's submitted to peer-reviewed journals for publication. These journals have a peer-review board. I sat on one for a few years. They're typically made up of MDs, PhDs, and scientists. And they basically dissect the study before publication. They scrutinize the study. You look at the methodology of the study. You look at the design of the study. And if it was done properly, you publish it in your journal. If not, you turf it back out to be redone. That's another layer of scrutiny that the company puts the product through, which is a peer review screening, a peer review process. And a great majority of these studies adhere to what's called gold standard research, which is randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. That's top-tier research. That's the kind of research that I look for my medical journals for legitimacy. And to date, the company now has going on 19 years of published research, over 30 published studies. It's been in peer-reviewed journals. It's been studied in 8 countries and 4 continents around the world at institutions like Yale, Vanderbilt, University of Arizona, Nemours Children's Clinic, MD Anderson Cancer Center, Medical University of Graz. This was huge for me as a doctor. I had to lean up against that kind of powerful research. Not only for me to take a product, but for my family to take, and then for me to recommend it to tens of thousands of people. I had to lean up against that kind of power studying the product. I mean, the company didn't go to the University of Antarctica to get his research done. Okay? They challenge themselves at these institutions. And the other thing that you have to understand is that these prestigious institutions are forever wedded to the product as well. Their names, their researchers, their institutions are forever emblazoned on that research paper tied to Juice Plus. So they have a lot at stake, too, to do top quality research. So what I want to do is just go through some of the research with you and tie some stories to it. I'm not going to go through, obviously, the whole body of research. If you want to, you can get online and geek out to your heart's content. If you like, go through them all. I've been there and done that numerous times. But what I want to do is just, again, point out some of these studies to you tied to some stories, because I think it's important for you to understand what this product will do to your physiology that no other product available in the world is capable of doing. And in various studies, Juice Plus has been shown to be beneficial to cardiovascular health. And besides lowering bad things like homocysteine, what they have found is that Juice Plus helps to improve endothelial elasticity. And that's important because the endothelium is the single layer of cells that lines the inside of your blood vessels and basically acts as an interface between your circulating blood and the rest of your body. And an intact and healthy endothelium is necessary not only for good cardiovascular health, but also peak exercise performance. Okay, now I have 3 boys. This picture was taken back in 2005. And I warned them that this would come back to haunt them. Pretty close to 100,000 people have seen this picture. And now worldwide, you guys get to see it. So I don't know how many millions of people are going to see it now. Okay, so this is a more up-to-date photo of them. Yeah, wow. Where did we go wrong with that one? Yeah. And I've had this slide up for a few years, and it dawned on me. I was lecturing in Portland, Oregon about a year ago. And right in the middle of the lecture, It just dawned on me. This is the difference between a liberal arts education and a West Point Military Academy. Boy. So you think that dad who goes all over the world lecturing about the important role of exercise and good nutrition, you think his boys would strictly adhere to that message? You know where I'm going with that. They're good athletes. I mean, you got a couple of swimmers and a basketball player out of that. But the nutrition side is somewhat lacking. And I get a call from my son David, who's in the middle. And yeah, he's now off to seminary school. Okay, he shaved the beard and there he goes. So that was the college grunge thing. But I get a call from him, and it's been years ago, and he was really excited. He's like, "Hey, Dad, listen, I got to tell you, I just went to the Indiana State Fair." I'm like going, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, you're not going to believe what I just ate." Right. So I'm going through this whole litany of fried whatever. I'm going to fry this, fry that. Couldn't get any worse than that. So I'm like, "Okay, well, what'd you have?" And he goes, "I just had a donut burger." Not only did he have just one, he had two. Thank you very much. Oh, boy. And please, I've had people come up to me after the lecture and say, "You know what, that's not unhealthy because there's plants in there, pickles, tomatoes, and onions. Don't go there." And actually, I did not know what a donut burger was. So I Googled donut burger, and it was actually originally called the Luther burger, named after Luther Vandross, the singer who is no longer with us. Because he died of cardiovascular disease. I kid you not. I kid you not. I was having chest pains when my son was telling me, "What? You got to be kidding me." But anyway, to kind of rein in the seriousness of this, you are what you eat, and so is your baby. Because back in 2009, on fetal sonography, they have now found the early stages of hardening of the arteries in fetuses of mothers who have not eaten well. Yeah, on fetal sonography, they're starting to see the early stages of fatty streaks in these arteries of fetuses of mothers who have not eaten well. Okay, we think of a cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, and those things are things that happen as we get older. But you know what? The pathology can start as early as in utero. So while we're getting everybody tonight worldwide, while we're getting this information for our own self here, I think we have a huge responsibility to impart this information to our kids. Because I think you guys would agree with me, worldwide we have a big issue, big problem with childhood obesity. Because kids are not exercising, they're playing video games all day and they're eating, unfortunately, fast food and stuff like that. But to kind of dovetail on this is a phenomenal study that was just published a few years ago. And this was a study that was actually published in the most prestigious pediatric journals in the world, the Journal of Pediatrics. And this was actually a study that was done at Nemours Children's Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. And the researchers had heard about Juice Plus, and they actually approached the Juice Plus company and said, "We would like to study your product on a subpopulation of adolescent obese boys." And so these boys took Juice Plus for 6 months. And after 6 months of being on Juice Plus, the researchers found out that there were significant changes to these boys' physiology. First of all, they found out that these boys had a significant increase in circulating serum carotenoids. And that's important because carotenoids are what give fruits and vegetables their color, and they're extremely powerful antioxidants. And the reason I point that out is that people who already struggle with weight, by virtue of that fact, already have an increase in oxidative stress. So that was the first benefit. Second thing they found out was that these boys had a reduction in abdominal fat mass. That's the bad fat. That's the visceral fat that lines the inside of your organs on the inside. And it's the bad fat. That's the fat that leaches out the inflammatory cytokines that can do damage to the rest of your body. And so they found out that was reduced as well. And then these boys had improved insulin resistance. And that's important because insulin resistance is the precursor to type 2 diabetes. Okay, so these 3 significant changes occurred in these boys' bodies, and that's after being on Juice Plus for only 6 months. So you can extrapolate that to a lifetime of being on the product. And just because this study took place in adolescent obese boys doesn't mean that there's not applicability to adults, because there absolutely is. Okay, I mentioned a little bit about systemic inflammation early on in the lecture, and gold standard studies have shown that Juice Plus reduces systemic inflammatory load. And we talked a lot about this tonight. There are numerous studies showing that Juice Plus reduces oxidative stress. whether that's daily walking around oxidative stress, okay, it's just a part of our normal daily metabolism, or the oxidative stress that occurs when you exercise. And yes, when you exercise at any level and you increase your oxygen consumption, you're going to increase your oxidative stress, your free radical load. We know that, but the benefits of exercise far outweighs the negative consequences of the oxidative stress that occurs. And the good news is that through gold standard studies, Juice Plus has been shown to effectively reduce that exercise-induced oxidative stress. And in a landmark study that was published a few years ago, this is a study that was done on the Austrian Special Forces Cobra Unit. Those of you in Austria, great study. And this was a tremendous study. And that over there is their equivalent to our Navy SEALs. You know, these are big, rough, rugged guys, physically trained specimens. You know, they're under a lot of physical and psychological stress. And basically, it was a 7-month study they did on these athletes, periodically exercising them during this 7-month window. And there were 2 groups in this study. One group that got the dummy pill, or the placebo, which is depicted in the red bars, and the other group that got Juice Plus, which is depicted in the green bars. And the researchers wanted to know, hey, what kind of protein oxidation, what kind of protein damage is occurring in these athletes' bodies as a function of them exercising during this 7-month window. And without going into great detail, what they found out from the beginning of this study at baseline to the final exercise session was that there was a significant accumulation of these oxidized or damaged proteins circulating around in these athletes' bodies that were not taking Juice Plus. They were taking the placebo pill. That's compared to the individuals in this study who were taking Juice Plus, and they didn't have any accumulation of these oxidized proteins in their bodies. Okay, why in the world is all that important? Well, because just in the last 2 to 3, 4 years, there are numerous studies now making the link between this accumulation of these oxidized proteins in athletes' bodies to overtraining and overreaching syndromes. So you see an athlete, and this could be little Johnny going off to soccer, all the way up to the elite athlete that start off a season healthy, right? But as that season progresses and the training gets ramped up, they start to get more and more tired, more and more sore, more and more sick, more and more injured. Well, they're now making the link to this accumulation of these oxidized proteins in these athletes' bodies over a training period. And in just a few minutes, you're going to hear my story again as it totally relates to this research. So again, I didn't go through all the research with you. You can go online and find it if you like. But what the studies do show is that Juice Plus reduces oxidative stress, reduces systemic inflammation, supports a healthy immune system, it's protective of DNA, supports cardiovascular wellness, and supports healthy skin and gums. And folks, I think the real significant thing to understand is that there is absolutely not a single drugstore or pharmacy that you could walk into and purchase something, nor is there a prescription that I or any other doctor anywhere in the world that could write for you that in totality would do every single one of those things that I just listed off to your body. Okay, so Juice Plus is concentrated food, 30 different fruits, veggies, and berries, and I challenge you to get that rainbow of color in your diet each and every day. And because it looks like it could be a vitamin supplement, it isn't a vitamin supplement. Okay, you do get your vitamins and minerals, but you're getting them from the plant source. The whole unfractionated form, the form that our bodies were meant to recognize and utilize. But again, just beyond the 30 some odd vitamins and minerals we know about, it's the tens of thousands of other plant chemicals that scientists are still naming and identifying. The key is all those plant nutrients working together in small amounts synergistically to be very powerful in the human body. Okay, now because I'm really not allowed to talk about competing products in my lecture, okay, so I don't know if they have these around the world. I apologize, but I'll get to the point here. I wanted to know what was in a popular child vitamin supplement. And when I found out about, blew me away. Multiple artificial sweeteners, multiple artificial colors and dyes, hydrogenated oils, these synthetic isolated laboratory-made vitamins and minerals, and a warning label. Okay? Now, Juice Plus has gummies, not only for kids, but adults too. And in the gummies are fruits and vegetables. But no artificial sweeteners, no artificial colors and dyes, no hydrogenated oils. And you know what? There is a warning label on the back of the gummies. It says, keep out of reach of children so they don't overeat. Okay? Hear me out. A kid can sit down and eat an entire bag of those and not die. They will be on the pot for 3 weeks, though. Trust me. I've heard that story thousands of times. However, okay, seriously, however, if they break in just a fraction of that bottle over there, oh, you got a problem. You got to call poison control. And again, so many of us grew up with that over there. Because at the time, we didn't know what we know about isolated vitamin supplementation, and we didn't have a healthier alternative to be giving our kids. Okay, and very clearly, we do now. I want to mention this. The company has this unbelievable program called the Children's Health Study. It is the largest children's observational study in the world. Over 800,000 participants, some, I believe, 150,000 which have already finished. And what it is that with an adult sponsor, a child anywhere from the age of 4 all the way up to a full-time college student can get Juice Plus for free for up to 4 years. Okay, you just fill out a questionnaire every 4 months. And the results that are coming back out of this study are incredible. Kids are having a lot less days missed in school. They're drinking fewer soft drinks. They're not going to the doctor as much. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's a tremendous study. And if you're not familiar with this, please talk with the person that invited you, because it really is very, very powerful that these kids are getting so healthy taking Juice Plus at such a young age, too. I want to mention just a couple of other products the company has. Tower Garden by Juice Plus. This does a lot better than that picture. It's a vertical aeroponic gardening. I feel like Caramel. It's a vertical aeroponic gardening system. But it actually has research as well. And this is a study that was done at the University of Mississippi. And this is where they actually compared the nutrient density of the produce that comes off the Tower Garden compared to a traditionally in-ground organic garden. And what they found out was that the Tower Garden yield, it grew 30% faster and more than what you would find in a traditional in-ground garden. But just because it grew faster, it didn't lose any antioxidant nutrient density power. It still was just as nutrient dense as organically grown produce in the ground. But the significant thing here is there's significantly less maintenance. Small footprint, closed system, fraction of the water, fraction of the nutrients. And that's really big for us, obviously, out on the West Coast, because our water tables are all drying up. And this is the wave of the future, not only here in the States, but worldwide. And the company has now positioned itself to be in this market. So again, if you're not familiar with this, very, very cool concept. And you do not have to have a green thumb to grow things on this. It's just crazy. And what I think is neat, too, is that we're also teaching our kids to be healthy. Hang on just a second, I didn't turn off. This is my nephew, Max, who lives up in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this is a kid who, eating fruits and vegetables to him was like eating cookies in the shape of fruits and vegetables, really. And so I went up to Scottsdale a year ago instead of a Tower Garden for him, and now he can't keep his hands off of them. I mean, this boy is eating spinach, he's eating tomatoes, he's eating things that he would never even touch because he's interacting with it. He runs out in the morning, wants to know what's growing. So that's so cool because they're changing these kids' taste buds. We're making a difference in these kids' lives, and I think that's so powerful. I want to mention a few other products. Juice Plus has a complete shake mix, which I consider absolutely clean burning fuel for everybody, especially athletes. And in the complete, it's plant-based, the primary protein of which is non-GMO, low water wash soy. There's lots of good fiber. It's gluten-free, low fat, no cholesterol, non-dairy, no coloring preservatives, low glycemic, and 100% vegan. And I know that people have issues with soy. Okay, and there's a big difference between old soy that's on the market today still that's highly acid washed, highly refined, versus the non-GMO, low processed water wash soy that's in the Juice Plus Complete. But if you don't believe me, then believe the experts. These are quotes taken from experts in their field just within the last year. This is Margie McCullough at the American Cancer Society, where studies show that soy doesn't interfere with anti-estrogen medication. This is Karen Collins, the American Institute for Cancer Research. Studies have actually shown that when soy, the non-GMO, low water wash soy, when it's given to breast cancer recovering patients, they have a 25% decrease in relapse. Mark Messina, who is a big guru on soy, has studied it for many, many years. I heard him speak years ago, finding that soy really doesn't have much interference with thyroid functioning at all. And these are things that are misconceptions that are out there that need to be refuted. That's a different kind of soy. That's different than what we have in the Complete. But I think the most telling and most important quote comes from me. And this is particularly for the guys out here, everywhere. Soy foods do not cause man breasts. They do not cause man breasts. There's not one single study anywhere ever that's ever shown that. Okay? So it's safe, guys. Believe me, we've got lots of professional athletes taking Juice Plus Complete. And if it was ever an issue, then why in the world would MD Anderson Cancer Center, one of the most preeminent cancer research institutions in the world, why in the world would they use our Juice Plus Complete in a study of their ovarian cancer patients? Okay, and that study's already completed. They're doing a second one. They were so impressed by it. So I hope that puts to rest some of the misconceptions and the kind of the Wikipedia-driven stuff that's out there that has no basis in human studies. Juice Plus also has complete nutrition bars. This is kind of healthy on-the-go snacks. Again, plant-based, lots of good fiber in it. It's also gluten-free, low-fat, non-dairy. It's got omega-3s. They do not taste fishy. It's amazing. No coloring, preservatives, low glycemic, and 100% vegan. I say that, I really stress the low glycemic, both products, because what happens is that when you eat foods that are low glycemic, they do not cause this big glucose spike followed by massive insulin spike. And that was huge here. This little Avery. Little Avery is the daughter of a friend of ours who lives in Colorado. And unfortunately, Avery has juvenile diabetes. And her mom, who is an Ivy League brainiac, really smart woman, had spent years trying to find healthy snacks to be giving and shakes to be giving her daughter. And so we started them on Juice Plus. I think it's been a couple of years ago because of the old packaging. And not only does Avery love the products, but her mom has told us that she can decrease by 1/3 the amount of insulin that she used to have to give her after traditional snacks. Okay? So again, healthy, clean, burning fuel. Great story, and that's just not the only story that's out there. So Juice Plus bridges the gap. It bridges the gap between the reality of what we eat on a daily basis and a more optimal amount of whole food-based nutrition that provides a rich pool of antioxidants and phytonutrients from which your bodies were absolutely designed and knows exactly what to do with to contribute to ideal health. And so, again, exercise, huge. Walking, huge. Walking, huge to your body, huge to your physiology. Big health benefits. And again, tonight what I did is I showed you that the research really does prove that, and that diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables will also positively impact your physiology. And again, what I did tonight is I showed you that the research proves that. But because our lives are so busy and it's so difficult to get the minimum 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day, that's where Juice Plus comes in to help to bridge that nutritional gap. And again, tonight I showed you that there is a massive body of research that proves that. So I want you to think about this because individually each of those components is powerful. But when you put all three together, that's true synergy for optimal health. But what I think is really neat is that for about the price of a cup of coffee, you can get up to 50 different kinds of plants circulating around in your body, working at a cellular level, getting you healthy from the inside out. And then finally, I want to tell you my story. This is I finished at the Ironman World Championships back in Kona, which I did in Kona in 2005, and it was a 10-hour, 10-minute, and 12-second nonstop day, and I joke with those people that I'll never forget those 12 seconds. All right. And, I didn't set world records or get gold medals. I just got a finisher medal after that, But anyway, I want to tell you my story because I think it's important for you to understand why I'm passionate about what I do now and why it's very different than what I was trained to do. As doctors, as physicians, we're trained to look for and treat disease. And, there is a place for that. But I've now spent many, many years on the other side of the fence of prevention. And it's amazing to me that when I look back in all my years as a clinician, that so many of the diseases that I was treating and writing prescriptions for were completely preventable by what we have just talked about in less than an hour. I actually had a pretty good race. I finished the race, went upstairs, showered, and came downstairs, ate dinner, and sat at the finishing line watching people finish the race. This is the one that's televised worldwide. And it's on NBC, and so there's helicopters with cameras. It's kind of a big star-studded event. And that wasn't to say that I wasn't sore or tired, because I was. I mean, that's a long, non-stop day. But I felt distinctly different in this race versus the year before when I did Ironman Florida. And I had an absolutely miserable race at Ironman Florida. I was basically flat. I was tired, fatigued going into the race itself, which I now know is because I had overtrained. I had accumulated all those oxidized proteins from all the training I was doing in preparation for the race. subsequently had a miserable race. For about 2 to 3 days after the race, I was constantly sick with one cough, one cold, for actually weeks after the race. One cough, one cold. I mean, basically my body was trashed. And at that time, in 2004, I was taking 8 vitamin, mineral, and herbal supplements. I had my concoction. I was putting things into my body based on the testimonials of my training partners. If it worked for them, probably worked for me. I wasn't doing a lick of research on any of those things. And now I know through the research that we talked about that they were doing more harm to my body than good. And the only thing I did differently from that race in 2004 to a year later was that I was actually approached by a very attractive and intelligent woman who said, "You're training a lot for Kona. You have a lot of oxidative stress going on in your body." I'm like, whatever that is. They don't teach doctors about oxidative stress. And she's like, "You need to be taking these fruits and vegetables in capsules." And I'm looking at them. As doctors, we are trained to be skeptical. And I was already eating very well, thank you. So what is fruits and vegetables and capsules going to do for me? But I did take them because I wanted to date her. And now we're married. Hi, honey, in the cameras, I know you're watching. And the reason I knock on myself for this is because it was so hard for me to wrap my Ivy League doctor brain around something as simple as fruits and vegetables and capsules. It wasn't complicated enough for this brain. It was too simple. I could turn around a bottle of Juice Plus and I could pronounce everything in it because it was whole food. Okay? But I did take them because I wanted to date her, and that is the honest to God truth. And I was training for Ironman Hawaii, so I was training a lot, sometimes 6-7 hours a day. So I knew my physiology very, very well, and not right away, but about 2 to 3 months into taking Juice Plus, I did start to notice some subtle, kind of anecdotal, testimonial things that were happening to my physiology that in all my years as a collegiate swimmer and triathlete, I had never noticed before. In the sense that I was having a lot less muscle and joint pain when I was training and racing. I was recovering a lot quicker between my training and racing sessions. And the other thing I noticed, I wasn't getting sick anymore. I wasn't getting the coughs, the colds. All those things I was constantly chasing before I started taking Juice Plus. And the interesting thing was that all my training partners were still struggling with it. So I knew that there was something that Juice Plus was providing for me in those nutrients that my body was not getting through a regular diet. So that's when I decided to look at the research on the product. And at that time, back then, 2 of the studies on Juice Plus were actually published in my sports medicine journal. It's called Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. Folks, that's the official journal of the American College of Sports Medicine. Are you kidding me? They can study fruits and vegetables and capsules with a placebo in humans, not rats or mice, using gold standard protocol, get those kinds of results, and then have them published in one of the most prestigious sports medicine journals in the world. Bingo. The light bulb went on, and it's never gone out. I really tell people that the next lecture I come up with should really carry the title Docs and Jocks, the 2 hardest nuts to crack. Okay, so I'll finish with this question then for you and everybody out in the rest of the world. How will you choose to live life to the plus? What will that look like for you? And, I've been doing this lecture for almost a decade, and the original intent with this lecture, and it still is today, is that this is a message of hope. Okay? And it's never too late to start an exercise program and still reap significant benefits for the rest of your life. And realize that it's never too late to try to get more fruits and vegetables in your diet, but also realize that Juice Plus absolutely fits into that healthy paradigm in getting every single one of us to a good, long, healthy longevity. So I would challenge you to live life to the plus every single day. You know what? Because by doing so, hopefully you are going to inspire all those people around you who are watching you get healthy. Hopefully you're going to inspire them to do exactly what you're doing. And that's what this is all about tonight. And Lauren alluded to that when she did some of the introduction. It's all about inspiring healthy living all around the world. And that's what I'm excited to do, okay? And believe me, you can do anything, okay? Little baby steps. I talk to thousands of people where they just start walking, and I see them a year later, and that baby step has turned into something bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, anything is possible. You can do anything. You can make changes in your life. We're not asking for gargantuan changes, okay? It's not what it's about. You meet people where you are and realize that, you know what? Take this information. There's a lot here. I know I talk fast. My wife is probably going, she's talking too fast again. But she's not here in the audience, so. But she's home. But, you know, take this information, especially not just for you, but you know what, your family and the people that you love, the people who you care for. This is for everybody. So I want to thank you so much and appreciate it.